Welcome back to F1 Brake Check. Whether you're a diehard fan or just here for the absurd, we've got something for you. We're in the final week of what we are calling the fall break. In this week's episode, we will have an all-new biography about one of the sports legends. Corey will melt my brain in the Stump-the-Pundit section. We'll break down the news of the week and get you ready for the return to action at the Circuit of the Americas. So buckle up, grab a beer and a plate of barbecue, and settle in as we go full throttle into turn one on this week's episode of F1 Brake Check.
Welcome. You are listening to F1 Brake Check, the epic podcast for all things Formula One, where we discuss technology, history, news, and perspective. With your hosts, Scott Vick and Corey Broom.
We're back with F1 Brake Check. My name is Scott Vick. I am one of your hosts. With me, as always, is my pundit for life, my ride or die, my brother in arms, Corey Broom. Corey, how you doing this week, sir?
It's going good actually this week. I've gotten quite a bit done, a lot of off the task list. Yeah, so it's going pretty good. How about you?
Excellent. Yeah, it's been a bit of a frustrating week. I have not, unlike you, I have not gotten a lot checked off of the task list this week. Because other people keep stepping all over my time. But, such is the way that, life and IT work sometimes.
Yep.
So, but other than that, things are going well. So, we're excited because the long fall break is almost over with, and we're about ready to see, the engines fire at COTA, and which is, my third favorite race out of the year, and getting super excited, ready for this weekend.
Same here. There's several points that I'm very excited about this week.
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot to be excited about.
Yeah.
All right, so let's take and jump into our biography for this week. He was one of Formula One's great pioneers, a man who left an indelible mark on the sport, not only for his team's accomplishments on the track, his pushing of engineering boundaries, his vision for the sport, and an instinct for talent that few could rival. Born on May 3rd, 1924 in Surrey, England, Ken Tyrrell's early life gave little indication of the crucial role that he would play later in shaping the modern era of Formula One. After serving as a pilot in the Royal Air Force during World War II, he returned home with a new sense of determination, soon discovering the world of motorsport. Tyrrell began his journey into racing as a driver in Formula 3 in 1952 in a 500cc Norton-powered Cooper. He advanced up the ladder in 1958 in a Cooper Climax, where he managed a number of top 10 finishes along with the occasional win. However, Tyrrell realized that he did not possess the talent to make it to Formula One. He quickly turned his skill as a businessman, and using his instincts, razor-sharp wit, and his ability to read people, he built a racing team that would define his legacy. In 1958, he launched the Tyrrell Racing Organization, and by 1959 was running the Works Coopers. With his eye on the big stage, Tyrrell forged a partnership with the ambitious car constructor Mantra in 1968, leading to his team's first serious foray into Formula One. But it was not until 1970, when Tyrrell became an independent constructor, that his team truly made its mark. From the very beginning, Tyrrell had an eye for talent. His most significant discovery was the legendary Sir Jackie Stewart, who would go on to become a three-time world champion. Tyrrell's nurturing of Stewart's career would become one of motorsport's great partnerships. Stewart's driving ability and otherworldly car control, combined with Tyrrell's leadership, created a Formula One juggernaut that dominated the early 1970s, placing second in the Constructors' Championship in 1968 and winning their first Drivers' Championship in 1971. That season remains one of the most memorable in F1 history. Stewart's brilliance behind the wheel and Tyrrell's tactical acumen delivered 6 wins, sealing both the Drivers' and Constructors' Championships. This triumph wasn't just a reflection of Tyrrell's ability to build a fast car. It underscored his brilliance as a team principal, a man who could get the best out of his drivers, engineers, and everyone around him. However, the road to success in Formula One is rarely smooth. Despite a dominant early start, Tyrrell faced increasing challenges as the 1970s progressed. Teams like Ferrari, McLaren, and Lotus began to eclipse Tyrrell in terms of technical innovation. But Tyrrell was never one to be counted out. His team continued to innovate, most famously with the audacious P34 in 1976. While the P34 still remains one of the most well-known race cars from that era because of its innovative six-wheel design, although the P34 never achieved the kind of success Tyrrell had hoped for, it showed the world that his team was unafraid to take risks, constantly pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Tyrrell's team slowly faded from its championship winning form as Formula One became more commercialized and expensive. Despite the team's struggles in the later years, Tyrrell's legacy remained untarnished. His influence on the sport extended far beyond the races his team won or the titles they claimed. He helped shape the careers of countless drivers, including Jody Scheckter, Mark Blundell, Mika Salo, Jean Alesi, Ronnie Peterson, and many, many more. He was also one of the early architects in the successful growth of Formula One, and he created a blueprint for what a successful privateer team could achieve. In 1997, the team was sold to British American Tobacco and competed for one more season under the Tyrrell name before being renamed British American Racing in 1999. Ken Tyrrell passed away on August 25th, 2001, but his legacy in Formula One lives on to this day. His vision and leadership remain benchmarks in the sport. He paved the way for others to follow, including Frank Williams, Eddie Jordan, and other privateer teams. All right, Corey. So, what are your thoughts on Ken Tyrrell?
Yeah, it's yet another person that I've heard the name Tyrrell, but I didn't really know much about him other than the name. So really understanding a little bit more about the history and what he's done, especially with Stewart, I think that's amazing. And comparing that to the team principals and drivers that we see today, like think of Lewis Hamilton and Toto Wolff and Christian Horner and obviously Max and Seb before that and Weber before that. I mean, it's such a cool thing to see that these people are have such a huge impact on drivers and the teams themselves.
Yeah. And like I said in the biography, he really did pave the way. He was really the first one of the very first true privateers, as they refer to him, where they didn't have, a large auto manufacturer or a large, entity behind them. It's like if we, without Ken Tyrrell, we wouldn't have had, guys like Frank Williams and Eddie Jordan, who also, said, to heck with it. We're going to take on the big boys, but we're going to do it on a shoestring budget. And in the case of Frank Williams, became an absolutely, for a time, became an absolutely dominant force in the sport, and Eddie, kind of was always knocking on that door, but I mean, and there were lots of other teams that, came along, that, great names in the sport that had it not been for, for Ken Tyrrell, we would have never, seen these others, because it was Ken Tyrrell is kind of what was also McLaren. We wouldn't have McLaren either, because, it was only because of, Bruce McLaren saw what Ken Tyrrell was doing. And he decided that I want to win. I want to start building my own race cars, and I want to win Formula One races in a car with my name on it. And it was, and a lot of that all comes back to Ken Tyrrell. And like I said, he was also, he was an architect of some of the early commercial successes of Formula One. He was one of the early people who supported the first Concord agreements, between the manufacturers and the FIA. So it's just his mark is just all over the sport to this day. Even if people, because he's been gone for, over, 2 decades now, since he passed away. Yeah. But, it's so a lot of people like yourself, like you said, you didn't really, you kind of knew the name, but you really didn't know who he was. But like I said, a lot of the things that we see, in the sport, both from a technical standpoint, from a driver talent cultivation, a lot of those ideas were all stuff that Ken Tyrrell was doing long before, other teams were doing it. And then the same thing, with a lot of the commercial stuff, he was either, an early, was an early, adopter, and in some cases he's the one who floated the ideas for certain commercialization, certain commercial parts of Formula One that that without Ken Tyrrell we wouldn't have them today. I don't think that the sport would be, it was really kind of, Bernie Ecclestone gets a lot of the credit because he really was kind of the pioneer, but it was only because he was working with his fellow constructors, because at the time when Formula One really started to take off was when it was still, when Bernie Ecclestone was still running the Brabham team. And it was only because of the work that from Ecclestone and from, the input from others like Enzo Ferrari and Ken Tyrrell that we get to, the place where we're at today. The sport wouldn't have nearly the following that it has now, if not but for these individuals paving the way.
Yep.
All right, then. So now we're on to my favorite part of the week. This is the time where we play Stump the Pundit. This is the time where Corey, who is a somewhat newer fan of Formula One, will take and try to stump yours truly, who has been following the sport since 1984. So, Corey, what do you have for me today?
All right. So within the last 10 years, that's pretty much the scope of where I'm going to stop is
okay.
From now and 10 years ago. All
okay.
Right. So which team holds the longest winning streak in a single F1 season in the last 10 years?
In the last 10 years, longest winning streak, that would be Red Bull.
Yeah. Which season?
It would have been 2022 coming into 2023.
Yeah. 15 consecutive wins by Max. Mm-hmm. Well, Max and Checo.
And Checo.
Yeah. Checo won a couple of those, but
yep.
He
Checo
had the lion's share.
I think.
Yeah. That's right. All right. This I guess a couple of these are going to be pretty easy for you. But the ones down below, I think, are going to be a little bit more challenging. So anyway, who became the youngest F1 champion in the last decade?
Okay, sorry. Within the last 10 years, then it would have been Max Verstappen.
Which year did he win it?
2021.
Yeah. I figured you get that one. That's pretty easy.
Sorry, I just
no.
I keep forgetting the 10 year time box on these. So okay. All right.
Yeah, going through all Okay, which driver managed to win a race from 20th, basically the last position, and what year did he win it? So starting from the back of the grid, as far back as you can get, then actually winning that race.
I want to, for some reason, the first one that jumps into my head is Lewis Hamilton. I want to say it was at Spa, where he took an engine penalty and had to start from the back of the field. And I want to say it was like lap 15 or 18, he was up to first place. Or am I completely off base there?
No, it's 2018, and it was Lewis Hamilton, the German Grand Prix.
Okay, so I had the right driver, just wrong race.
Right. All right. Let's see here. Which record did Mercedes break during the 2020 F1 season?
I want to say it was most wins by a constructor, but I don't think that's right. Because
that actually is right.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, because I thought Ferrari was ahead of them, but okay.
Yeah, the most consecutive constructors championship, winning their 7th title in a row in 2020.
God, okay, so it was constructors title, not just overall races. That's what I was saying. I thought I was trying to say that they had broken the record for constructors championships. Yes. Okay, there we go.
So it surpassed you. You were on the right track at least, because Ferrari held that record from 99 to 2004. Mm-hmm. That was 6 consecutive championships. Now, obviously Mercedes had 7 in 2020.
Gotcha. Okay.
Last question. Which F1 circuit has seen the highest number of race wins for Hamilton between 2014 and 2023?
I want to say it's Silverstone.
No. I was shocked by this.
No. I'm sorry?
I was shocked by that too, but it's not Silverstone.
It's not Silverstone. So I'm going to, no. It's Hungary.
No. One more try.
Okay. If it's not Hungary and if it's not Silverstone, because he's won everywhere so many freaking times that it's he holds the record for most wins at a lot of tracks. It's like between him and Schumacher on a lot of them.
Yeah.
If it's not Hungary and if it's not Silverstone, I'm gonna. I want to say Coda now, but I don't think that's right.
No, it's the Canadian Grand Prix.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
My first thought was it was going to be a Silverstone, but it obviously
Yeah.
not that way. And that's
Okay.
it.
Well, I
So the
am humbled.
well, you got the first two with ease.
Yeah.
Well, actually, first three technically. So yeah.
I'll take them. I'll take the wins where I can get them.
All right, and we're finished. That's all for Stump-the-Pundit.
All right, then. That was great. Thank you. All right. So this week, not a lot of news to talk about. After we recorded an episode 2 weeks ago. But unfortunately, due to technical gremlins, the episode was completely unusable. So we spared trying to have you guys listen to it out there. So, but since then, we've only really had a couple of things that have popped up. The first thing that came up was right after we finished recording, we got the news that Alpine will no longer be building power units past 2025. So, your thoughts, Corey? Do you think this is, so apparently they're going to become another customer team for Mercedes. So your thoughts on losing Alpine/Renault as a engine or a power unit supplier?
Yeah, I will miss that, honestly. I think that having them supply their own, I don't know. I really think that we're going to miss a very large portion of what it is that really makes up that team now. Moving them over to what everybody else is using. I don't know. To me, I really like that they had their own. They were responsible for it. That they manufactured it. That they had all the it was all on them. And now that they're kind of going away from that, I understand from a cost perspective and everything, but I don't know. I really like that aspect of that team that they were able to keep that together.
No, I totally agree with you. I think that, from a competition standpoint,
Yeah.
I mean, it's, you have to remember, I mean, it was just, as few as a handful of years ago that, they were, because as all power unit manufacturers are required, as they, can build the power units for themselves, but they also have to be able to supply other teams if another team wants to use their power unit. They have to, by the regulations, they also have to be able to have, now, unfortunately, because their power units the last couple of years have been down on power a little bit, nobody else has wanted them. But I mean, we saw Red Bull using them just as soon as 3 years ago. Max won his first championship with a Renault engine that had been rebranded as an Infiniti, but it was still a Renault engine at its heart. So for them to have gone from being a championship winning power unit supplier to being completely out of the sport, I think is not good for the sport. We definitely, I mean, like you said, I definitely see from a cost cutting measure, I definitely, I see the whole idea behind it. But to lose a name like Renault, this isn't the first time that Renault has pulled out of Formula One. I mean, we can remember quite famously at the end of the 1997 season, they pulled out, and the engines were purchased by Flavio Briatore, and he rebranded them as Mechachrome. And put like no additional development into them and everything, and was selling them, or was leasing them out, under the Mechachrome. It wasn't until I want to say it was 2004, 2005 that Renault returned to Formula One as a full, power unit supplier. To be perfectly honest with you, this was my thought the other day, that if the FIA hadn't been so, and the more, not so much the FIA, but if the other constructors had not been such poo-poo heads, and had let Andretti be, because Andretti basically had a handshake deal with Renault to be a customer that if they had that infusion of cash from Andretti to be, as a customer, leasing the engines from them, that would have helped offset a lot of the development costs that Renault was putting into their power units. And I think that probably the decision would have gone a totally different way. But I think it's just simply because of the delays and the fact that, Andretti is still in flux at the moment, that's really kind of what killed the Renault power unit for now. Now, who's to say maybe in 2-3 years, if the Alpine team, running, Mercedes or, Ferrari or, Honda, Ford, depending upon, Audi, depending upon who they end up going with in 2026, who's to say that if the Alpine, if the car itself is really, really good and they're able to, make some, some headway, coming up the grid, then who's to say that they won't return again at some point in the future, because at the heart, there are a couple of brands that just are so synonymous with racing that when they pull out of something, we've seen it time and time again where they pull out and after a few years they realize, okay, after a couple of years of cost savings, now we can go back and our brand really needs to be out there. You've seen it, because there are some teams that are they're racing teams, racing companies, if you will, at heart, Honda, Toyota, Ford, these are companies that just have racing so ingrained in their DNA that they can't stay away from the sport for very long. Every once in a while, a CEO or somebody will come along and say, hey, we're spending too much money on racing, kill the racing programs. And in a few years when he's gone, they'll hire a new CEO and he's like, no, we got to go racing. It's the whole adage of, win on Sunday, sell on Monday, type thing that, it's so, for some of these brands, it is so important for them to be in racing. And I think that Renault is really kind of one of those companies that racing is so ingrained in their DNA that, they have to be in there and they're still keeping their toe in there, with the Alpine team. They didn't kill the team altogether. They're just killing the power units for right now. And so I just think it's just a matter of time will tell. But like I said, it makes me sad. I think it's a detriment to the sport, but I don't think it's the last we've seen of Renault/Alpine as a power unit supplier.
I hope not, man. I hope you're right.
So another thing, another rumor that was floating around about Alpine, though, is that now with Alpine having made the decision to stop producing power units, that the team was now for sale and that they were in very serious talks with a couple of different entities, one of them being Andretti. Another one, there was a rumor about Flavio Briatore buying the team and everything else. And but the team is basically categorically denied and said, we are not for sale. We are going to be on the grid. We're going to be Alpine for the foreseeable future. And usually when those kind of rumors start floating around, and then when the team principal comes out and says categorically, we are not for sale, that usually means, yes, we're for sale and a deal is almost done.
Well,
But,
we've seen that a few
it's
times,
like we
though.
haven't.
You're right. I mean,
Yeah.
Not with just teams, but with, drivers, with rumors in general with F1. Usually the rumor, when it's really strong like that, usually there's a lot of truth. And just like you said, typically we're going to find something here, within the next few weeks, maybe a month or so.
You and I discussed at great length during the Lost episode about, Danny Rick, being replaced at Racing Bulls with Liam Lawson. We discussed, the political and commercial ramifications of it, because Liam had a stipulation in his contract that if he didn't have, at least some race time, before the end of the season, that Racing Bull, he was basically a free agent and that he could walk from Racing Bulls. We also talked about, Danny Rick's legacy in the sport, and where he places at and things like that. So we're not, that was kind of lost, in that, lost episode. So I don't really want to rehash it. But one of the things though that the promoters at COTA for this weekend have said that they really want Ricardo to be there this weekend, just simply because Ricardo has embraced America, and specifically the Austin area and the COTA track, in such a way that him not being there, and I agree with this, with what they said, is that by him not being there is actually not a good, it's a good thing that if he's there, even if he's just there in like an ambassador type role, to be on the grid and in the paddock, pressing the flesh and things like that. And I think that it's a fantastic idea. And I'm really hoping that he takes them up on their offer to have, for him to host, be hosted as a special guest at COTA this weekend. So your thoughts?
I think that would be awesome. Like we've talked about many times on the show, is you've been a lot more lenient, I would say, on Danny Rick, where I've been a little bit more harsh or more critical. But I've always maintained that I think that as a human being, I think he's a fantastic person, no doubt about it. I just think that he's a little bit over on his time at F1. With that being said, I definitely love that he would possibly, or hopefully that he would be part of COTA, because he brings in fans. He's funny. Other drivers like him. So there's a personality that is very attractive there. So I really hope that he's there. I think that would be fantastic. Him in a cowboy hat. I mean, come on. That's just good stuff right there.
Yep. The only thing that he has done, and this is just purely me, but if for anyone who knows, I am a proud alumni of the University of Oklahoma. I hate the University of Texas with a passion that burns brighter than 1,000 suns. And last year, Danny Rick had a football player in a UT uniform on the back of his helmet, and it was the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in my life. Well, maybe not the most disgusting, but it's definitely top three. I lost a lot of respect for Danny Rick, but at the same time, I understand, know your audience, and he definitely knew his audience. And I think it was definitely, something that, but he is so embraced, like you said, he, in the cowboy hat and the cowboy boots, on the grid, in his fire suit before changing into his, fireproof boots, it's just, you gotta love everything about, the way that Danny Rick has embraced COTA and Texas and everything. I mean, there's a lot of people that, consider him an honorary Texan. So
definitely.
And the thing is that he, even though he's not in the race seat anymore, he's still a reserve driver for Red Bull. He's still under contract. It's not like they've released him outright. So, he could very well, already have planned to be there this weekend as a, in the reserve driver capacity in case something did happen to Yuki or to Liam this weekend. Heaven forbid should it happen, but he's still, a reserve driver, and he could very well have already been planning to be there. So I'm really, really hopeful that he'll be there this weekend. If nothing else, just I think that he is, through Drive to Survive and through his personality and everything, he has become such an amazing ambassador for the sport that even if he's not in the car, he still has the ability to draw people in. And I think that, anytime that he's, can make an appearance, I think it's a good thing.
I totally agree. Yeah.
All right. So should we let's go ahead and jump into our preview for this weekend's race. So for our preview this week, we're going to ask the same 4 questions that we always ask. So Corey, question number 1, who do you think is going to go well this weekend?
So I really think that we're going to have a very good battle this weekend. I think it's going to be McLaren, obviously. And then I think with the upgrades that Red Bull is going to be up there as well. I think that they're going to have really good battles. I think that very close to that will be Ferrari and Mercedes, but I think the two top teams will be definitely Red Bull and McLaren.
Yep, I definitely I agree with you wholeheartedly on the McLaren front. And but I'm going to take, and I'm going to just to for the sake of of entertainment, I'm going to take and I'm going to say that actually I think that because Mercedes is had some upgrades at the last race. They didn't quite work exactly as they thought they would, but they've now had 4 weeks to tweak and really refine those upgrades. And I think that Mercedes is going to go very, very well this weekend because of being because of the time away. That time is going to have really benefited Mercedes, and I think that they're going to go really, really well this weekend. But I'm like you, that I think in my heart of hearts, I think McLaren is going to be the class of the field again this weekend. I think it's going to be really kind of a shootout between Oscar and Lando this weekend for the top step on the podium.
All right.
But we'll get into the podium here in just a little bit.
Sure. Yeah.
So, all right. So who do you think is not going to go well this weekend?
Your usual suspects at the end of the grid, but I'll talk more midfield. So I really think that we'll still see some continued issues with Alpine and Aston Martin. Still will have some continued woes. I think that Williams is going to be doing fairly well, but we'll get into my surprise in a second. You go ahead. So who do you think will not do well this weekend?
I'm like you, that I think because of the Renault power unit being a little down on horses, I think Alpine, this is not going to be a track that is going to suit the Alpines at all. I'm pretty sure that they're going to be pretty woeful this weekend. And I also, I still maintain that Sauber is tanking right now. I think they've pretty much given up completely on this year's car, which is going to cause the car to continue to slide down, the order. And I really do think that Sauber is going to be bringing up the rear this weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, same here. I didn't list them because I assumed that they're going to be at the back of the grid.
Yeah. No, I definitely think that you're right. All right, so who's going to be your surprise this weekend?
I've said it a few times in the past, but I'll say it again. Haas. I think Haas is going to do really well. They had some upgrades off the during the break. I think that they're going to do really well. I think Williams, though, is going to be my surprise for this race.
All right, very cool. Well, I am going to go in the opposite direction, though. You thought that Aston Martin was not going to have a very good weekend, and see, I just reading the tea leaves, I think that Aston Martin is bringing a raft of upgrades that were supposed to be ready for the last race, but they ended up not using them. That again, it's this couple of weeks, time to refine them and things like that. I think those upgrades are going to make a huge difference on the car. And I can see that, if Ferrari or Mercedes stumble at all this weekend, I can see Aston Martin being right there at the top of the midfield, maybe even, knocking on the door of the back part of the top four. So I think Aston Martin is going to have a very, very good weekend this
I hope you're right, man. I'm a fan of Alonso, so I really hope so.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that, the extra time, also, and we've talked about it a couple times this season, that Stroll has been a little up and down, but he's been more up than down this season. Yep. And I think that, and we've talked about, how much we think that, Alonso has played a huge part in helping him mature. And I think that, another couple weeks of being able to regroup, focus, I think Stroll will have a really, really good weekend this weekend. And I think that, we started to see, we talked about it, a while, before the last race, that we saw that with the announcement of Newey coming to Aston Martin next year, he'll be too late to really have much of a hand in the early part of the season, but towards the latter part of the season, we'll start to see some refinements on the car that will help improve it. But I also think that the morale improvement at Aston Martin is going to be a huge thing. And I think that that's just going to continue to have built over the last couple weeks that the teams have been, away from the tracks, that I think it's going to have a huge effect on them this weekend.
Nice. Yeah, I hope so, man.
Yeah. So, all right then. So who's your podium this weekend?
Man, I'm gonna have to go with Max, Lando, and then I will say Lewis.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So you're picking Max to win over Lando.
I am going to have him. Yep.
Well, I went back and I've listened to a couple of episodes from earlier this season, and there's been a couple times where you've nailed the podium completely. So, so we'll see. All right. But okay, so myself though, like I said, I really think that McLaren is going to be the class of the field this week, and providing that they nailed the pit strategy, which I really firmly think that they will, because they usually do. They historically have done really, really well at COTA, even when the car has been dreadful. So I'm going to go Lando on the top step. I'm going to go Piastri's going to come in second. They're going to team orders are going to come into play this weekend, sure. And Piastri will finish second. And I'm going to say it'll actually be Russell will be the third step of the podium this weekend.
Okay.
All right, awesome, then. Man. So any other thoughts on this weekend's race?
No, I think I'm all good, man.
Okay. All right, then. Well, let's go ahead and bring it home then.
Let's do it.
All right. So the checkered flag is waved on our last weekend with no racing. We'll be back next week to break down all the action from COTA. We'll have more technology goodness with the return of our Tech Corner, more pundit stumping trivia from Corey, and so much more. So until next time, he's Corey. I'm Scott. We're the pundits of F1 Brake Check. Let's go!
Thank you for listening to F1 Brake Check. If you have enjoyed what you heard, don't miss a single episode by hitting that subscribe button in your favorite podcatcher, or you can watch the video version on YouTube. Help us grow by sharing us with your friends and fellow F1 fans. You can contact us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok and X at F1 Brake Check. Our website is f1brakecheck.com, where you will find links to all our content. We value your passion and your feedback, so please take a moment to review our podcast. Your reviews help us grow and improve, and it means the world to us. Share your thoughts, rate us, and let us know how we can make the show experience even better. F1 Brake Check is a production of Brake Check Media. For your hosts Scott Vick and Corey Broom, until next time, keep yourself inside track limits, and try not to pitch it in the kitty litter.